Welcome back to Coffee with the Authors. I'm Wendelin Van Draanen, and in this episode, I'm going to talk about the writing principle, Chekhov's gun. So Anton Chekhov was a Russian playwright from quite a while ago, and he was very famous at the time, and he had this principle, which we call Chekhov's gun, which basically is that if you introduce an element in a story, in chapter 1 or in, scene 1 as he had it, that you better use it in the story later. So it's called Chekhov's gun because the way he described it is if there's like a rifle on a mantle in the opening scene, that gun had better be fired by the end of the play, or you need to remove the gun. So I thought it would be fun to go through an example of the use of Chekhov's gun by exploring the early pages of my most recent novel called The Steps. So The Steps is a mystery thriller, and the title comes from what the main character calls her new stepfamily, the members of her new stepfamily. They're the Steps. And, think step brother, step sister, step cousin, and of course, evil stepmother. The main character's name is Ruby Vossen, and a lot of the story takes place on the sprawling Vossen estate. It's sort of a remote place with a lot of trees, kind of on a hill. There's the grandmother owns the big mansion on the hill, and then she and her father live in one house to the side, and then her cousin and her father's brother, her uncle, live in another one. So that's the setting. The story's main theme is centered on the insidious and destructive nature of greed. So what I'm going to do, something I rarely ever do, so maybe I'm not that great at it, but bear with me because it's here to kind of explain Chekhov's gun. I'm going to read a little bit from The Steps, and it's a culled version. So it is, I've excerpted things from chapter 1, but your job is to try to decide which of the things that I read about are elements that would represent Chekhov's gun. Like, do these things need to be used later in the story for them to be relevant? Or should I, as the author, have removed them? So let's dive in, and I hope you enjoy this because, I don't do this very often. So we've got Ruby Vossen. We've got her in her little attic room because she's been kind of shoved out of her own home by the step family, and she's up in the attic room. So the wind was already whipping around outside, howling like an angry ghost, when our monster pine tree began scratching at my bedroom window. With its long, gnarled branches and deep groans, that tree's like something out of a horror movie. Plus, everything on the 40 acres of my grandmother's property that knows how to climb or fly or crawl lives in it, including a terrifying number of little brown beetles, which is all bad enough during the day, but at night I get to hear the ear-piercing sounds of something killing something else. My nightly lullaby. No wonder my dreams are so messed up. Anything in there yet? Chekhov's gun? Dad won't take the tree out or even trim it back, since it's too big and too expensive. Stepmommy Dearest tells me, "You need to change your thinking, Ruby. That tree is a goddess of nature." But whatever. Once again, I was going to have to open the window and saw off the branch and hope that no rabid rodent jumped out to fang me. For the record, yes, I keep a sharky-toothed fold-out saw in my room. It's more convenient than storing it in the shed, and having it on hand also means I don't have to deal with running into the steps. Anyway, I grabbed my saw, opened my bedroom door, and after making sure the steps weren't around, I closed the door, propped a chair underneath the knob, and also grabbed my hatchet. Because, just in case. Anything in there yet? Chekhov's gun? Where we pick up Ruby's cousin Sterling, who has been her best friend her whole life and is now forbidden to talk to her, is underneath her bedroom window calling to her. And Ruby's like, what is going on? Because there's a rule that says these two girls can't talk to each other. Okay, here we go. Ruby, open the window. It was definitely Sterling, and she was definitely breaking a tightly enforced family rule by talking to me. I flipped off the lights, threw back the curtains, pushed up the window, and stuck my head out into the windy darkness. Except I didn't see Sterling in the tree, and there wasn't a branch touching my window, so was this some sort of trick? I ducked back inside and grabbed my super tack flashlight. It's super bright, 200 lumens, and has an easy fist grip and a thumb press switch. So it's great for blinding burglars or bears or rabid rodents ready to lunge at you through a curtain of pine needles. And yeah, in case you're wondering, it also works on the steps. Anyway, as I lit up the tree with a flashlight, I could see a lot of glassy eyes shining back at me, but none of them seemed human. I leaned farther out my window and swept my light around until I spotted Sterling clinging to a trellis on the side of the house. She was wearing dark clothes and was holding a long, skinny branch. "What are you doing?" I hissed. "Where's the rope?" Sterling asked. "It's not in the tree fort." None of this made any sense. "I'm going to be in so much trouble if Dad finds out I'm talking to you," I hoarse whispered. "Same," she hoarse whispered back as she worked her way down the trellis and onto the ground. "That's why I'm asking about the rope. Did you stash it under your bed?" This infuriated me. We hadn't spoken in almost a year, and she could still somehow guess where I'd stashed the rope? Even more infuriating, I was in high school now. How was I still the girl who kept a rope and a hatchet and a saw and stuff I won't even begin to admit under her bed? But the truth is, it's not just the monster tree that scares me. It's also the steps. Well, I think that's enough to illustrate the Chekhov's gun principle. So, before the end of the steps, I had better have Ruby use the hatchet, the saw, the rope. There's also a box of Twinkies under her bed because, survival. But then there are other things as well, like the tree, maybe those beetles. There are things that are introduced in chapter 1 that I, as the author, have the responsibility of using somewhere else in the book in a significant way, or I need to take them out of chapter 1. Another mistake, which is like the opposite of Chekhov's gun, is if you don't introduce something early on that winds up having a significance later in the story. Like if all of a sudden in chapter 25, your main character has the ability to rock climb. They're an ace rock climber and they can scale walls suddenly. And you've never mentioned before that they were a rock climber. So try not to do the opposite as well. That's my little story for this week. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope the Chekhov's gun thing comes into play in your story because it's actually a very good technique. Thanks for stopping in. If you have any writing tips that you'd like to share with the audience, by all means put them in the comments. Meanwhile, remember, dream big, work hard, don't give up, and I'll see you next time.